California cemeteries are not just resting places for the departed, they are realms where the past refuses to remain silent, where shadows linger, and the veil between the living and the dead grows thin after dusk. From the fog-draped hills of San Francisco to the quiet valleys of Los Angeles, these graveyards hold stories of heartbreak, tragedy, and restless spirits who have refused to move on. Walking among tombstones, it is easy to feel the weight of decades, centuries, even lifetimes pressing down, whispers riding on the wind, unseen eyes following your every step. Imagine standing alone in the misty grounds of a centuries-old cemetery, the ground damp beneath your feet, the air thick with the scent of aged stone and fallen leaves. Every statue, every monument, every engraved name tells a story of lives abruptly ended, of love unfulfilled, of vengeance, grief, or sorrow too great to leave behind. You might hear a faint footstep behind you, the rustle of a dress that should not be there, or the soft sobbing of someone mourning long ago. Candles flicker in the distance, though no one is present, shadows dance across crypts, and the chill of the night seems to reach into your very bones. These cemeteries are alive in their own way, haunted not by the imagination alone, but by histories written in pain and memory. Ghostly figures may appear in the periphery, just beyond the edge of your vision, lingering near graves that hold stories of murder, illness, or untimely death. The wind carries whispers of names, of regrets, of promises never kept. Statues of angels, crosses, and weeping figures seem to follow you as you walk, their eyes knowing more than you could ever comprehend. For those who venture into these hallowed grounds after dark, the experience is both terrifying and strangely magnetic. You feel drawn to explore, to witness the strange lights that float between headstones, the shapes of cloaked figures moving silently across the cemetery, or the cold spots where temperatures drop inexplicably. Some have reported seeing spectral families wandering as though attending an invisible funeral, while others have felt hands brush against theirs, heard phantom whispers calling their name, or glimpsed figures appearing to mourn at graves that no longer exist in records. California's haunted cemeteries also reveal the intertwining of history and legend. Some are resting places for forgotten pioneers, some for notorious criminals, and others for the innocent and the damned alike. Each cemetery carries its own personality, its own type of hauntings, and its own energy that interacts with the living in ways that science cannot always explain. It is a place where tragedy becomes eternal, where lives that ended in violence, sorrow, or heartbreak remain present, lingering just out of reach, waiting for the curious, the brave, or the unfortunate to witness their lingering presence. So as you walk these cemeteries, whether under the moon in the quiet light of dawn, or in the shadowy fog of night, remember that each step might be observed, each breath might stir a presence that has waited years to be acknowledged. These cemeteries are not merely historical sites, they are portals into the lives and afterlives of the souls who inhabit them, silent yet persistent, peaceful or vengeful, curious or menacing. The stories you will hear, the experiences you might feel, and the chills that run down your spine are only a glimpse into a much deeper, darker truth. The shadows will shift. A stone may crumble unexpectedly. A faint whisper might echo your name. A light might flicker over a forgotten grave. And you will realize, perhaps too late, that the dead of California are not resting quietly. They are watching, waiting, and ready to make their presence felt. Haunted Cemetery Number 1. Mountain View Cemetery, Oakland. Mountain View Cemetery in Oakland, California, is more than just a resting place for the deceased. It is a sprawling landscape of winding paths, ancient trees, and elaborate mausoleums where the past seems to breathe through the fog and shadows. Established in the mid-19th century, this cemetery is home to countless stories of hauntings and paranormal activity, drawing the attention of ghost hunters, thrill seekers, and those fascinated by the unseen. Visitors often report an overwhelming sense of being watched, even when walking along the quietest paths. The air seems to thicken as dusk falls, and the silhouettes of statues cast unnatural shadows, twisting and moving in ways that defy logic. Some say the spirits here are restless, tied to the dramatic lives of the people buried among the grand monuments, and they linger to watch over the living or perhaps to replay the final moments of their earthly existence. One of the most chilling tales revolves around the crypts of the older sections, where the walls are lined with intricately carved stone markers and faded epitaphs. People have described hearing whispers that come from empty mausoleums, voices carrying faintly through the cold night air, seeming to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Sometimes, the whispers form words, unintelligible phrases, or even mournful calls of names that sound eerily familiar to those wandering the grounds. Visitors walking the fog-laden paths at night sometimes feel sudden drops in temperature, freezing chills that envelop them as though invisible hands brush their shoulders. Shadows dart across their vision, just at the edge of perception, vanishing the moment they turn to face them. Some witnesses report phantom figures, women in flowing 19th-century dresses, men in period suits, and even children in old-fashioned attire appearing near the family plots, sometimes staring silently, sometimes walking alongside as if guiding or warning. Another account tells of a caretaker who once stayed late during a heavy fog. As he moved through the cemetery, he noticed footprints appearing in the mist, following him in perfect alignment, but when he looked back, the ground was undisturbed. Lights sometimes flicker in the distance, where no bulbs or lanterns exist, illuminating statues that seem to shift their gaze as you pass. Some areas of Mountain View Cemetery are particularly notorious for sightings. The Potter's Field, where the indigent and forgotten are buried, is rumored to host some of the most malevolent spirits. Witnesses describe screams echoing through the night, sometimes accompanied by shadowy figures darting between the graves. It is said that those who venture here alone may feel the weight of unseen eyes, or worse, feel hands gripping their arms or shoulders, though no one is there. Occasionally, ghostly apparitions appear near the wrought iron gates and the central mausoleum. People report seeing figures wandering among the gravestones, moving unnaturally, sometimes pausing to look directly at the living before disappearing into thin air. Many visitors recount hearing the faint scent of roses or burning wood, even when no flowers or fire exist nearby. Some paranormal investigators have even caught unexplained orbs on camera, moving erratically among the graves, sometimes hovering over empty plots. Mountain View Cemetery's haunting extends beyond visual and auditory phenomena. Several witnesses speak of a pervasive sadness, a heavy feeling in the pit of the stomach, as though the very soil carries the weight of grief and loss accumulated over centuries. Others experience disorientation, feeling lost among paths they know should lead back to the entrance. Some claim that time itself seems to stretch or compress, moments dragging endlessly or flashing by in seconds. Throughout the night, the cemetery transforms. The fog thickens and statues cast elongated, distorted shadows. The graves seem to whisper secrets of old Oakland, the echoes of the past bleeding through the present. Those brave enough to remain until dawn often feel a mixture of awe and dread, a recognition that some of the stories are more than just folklore. Whether these spirits are benevolent, malevolent, or merely echoes of memory, Mountain View Cemetery is a place where the line between the living and the dead grows perilously thin. Visiting Mountain View Cemetery is not just a walk through history, but a journey into a realm where the past is alive, the air is thick with unspoken stories, and the spirits of the departed may still walk silently, watching and waiting for anyone daring enough to wander among their eternal resting places. This place remains one of California's most haunted cemeteries, where countless chilling encounters have been reported, leaving visitors with unforgettable experiences that blur the line between reality and the supernatural. Number 2. Rose Hills Memorial Park, Whittier. Rose Hills Memorial Park in Whittier, California, sprawls across hundreds of acres, a serene resting place by day, but under the cover of night, it transforms into a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. Known as one of the largest cemeteries in the western United States, Rose Hills is home to countless stories of paranormal activity, mysterious figures, and inexplicable events that have left even the most skeptical visitors unsettled. The cemetery is dotted with elaborate mausoleums, ornate headstones, and family plots adorned with statues that seem almost lifelike. When the sun sets, these statues take on an eerie quality, their eyes appearing to follow wandering visitors, their stone hands casting unnatural shadows across the ground. Fog often creeps through the park in the late evening, curling around monuments and tombstones, giving the landscape a dreamlike, almost otherworldly appearance. Witnesses frequently report seeing shadowy figures drifting along the paths, sometimes dressed in old-fashioned clothing, sometimes appearing as vague, featureless silhouettes. These apparitions move silently, vanishing the moment anyone attempts to approach, leaving only an icy chill behind. Some visitors have described the sensation of being watched, an invisible presence tracking their every step through the labyrinthine grounds. One of the more notorious stories involves the northern section of the cemetery, where the older graves lie. People claim to hear footsteps pacing along the gravel paths, echoing as if someone walks just behind them, but when they turn, no one is there. Soft whispers can sometimes be heard, carried on the wind, calling out names that are never known or understood, leaving a lingering sense of unease. Visitors have also reported sudden drops in temperature, the kind that freezes the skin and makes the hair stand on end. Some even claim to feel light touches or brushes against their arms and shoulders, as though invisible hands pass through them. These experiences are often accompanied by a feeling of vertigo or disorientation, as if the cemetery itself is subtly shifting, reshaping its paths and plots to confuse and intimidate those who wander alone. The mausoleums themselves have their own eerie stories. In particular, several older buildings have been the site of unexplained phenomena. Lights flickering inside rooms with no electricity, doors opening and closing on their own, and shadows crossing windows where no one should be. Paranormal investigators have occasionally captured orbs on camera, drifting slowly along the pathways, sometimes stopping over graves before disappearing without explanation. Some accounts mention spectral figures that appear near the water features in the cemetery, such as fountains and reflecting pools. These figures are said to be transparent at first, then gradually solidify, often resembling mourners frozen in grief or children playing silently, their faces pale and expressionless. Occasionally, the mournful cries of these apparitions can be heard, echoing across the park, vanishing as quickly as they appear, leaving an unnatural stillness in their wake. The park is not only known for visual hauntings but also auditory ones. Visitors report hearing faint organ music, distant weeping, and the shuffle of shoes on gravel paths where no one walks. Some have described hearing conversations carried on the wind, snippets of dialogue that suggest old feuds, unresolved tragedies, or long-forgotten family secrets. At times, these sounds become almost overwhelming, creating an unsettling atmosphere that suggests the dead are still attempting to communicate with the living. Certain areas of Rose Hills are known for repeated encounters with ghostly children. People recount seeing small figures darting between headstones, chasing invisible balls or playing hide-and-seek. When approached, these figures vanish instantly, leaving only an echo of laughter or a fleeting shadow. Elderly visitors have even claimed to recognize faces of children long deceased, their images seemingly frozen in time, wandering silently among the graves. The cemetery has a reputation for strange lighting phenomena as well. At night, unexplained glows often appear between mausoleums, moving in unnatural patterns, sometimes resembling lanterns held by unseen hands. Some witnesses have reported seeing flickering lights in windows where no one resides, or pale figures illuminated in the mist, staring silently before disappearing into darkness. Many who visit alone report an overwhelming sense of being followed, their every movement mirrored by unseen observers. Some even claim to have felt pressure on their shoulders or chests, as though an invisible force is pressing upon them. The sensations often leave visitors breathless, disoriented, and acutely aware of the lingering spirits that populate the grounds. Rose Hills Memorial Park's haunting is not limited to a single age group. Visitors of all ages report seeing figures from various eras, from Victorian-dressed mourners to soldiers from the World Wars, their faces pale, eyes hollow, forever trapped in the moment of death or loss. The cemetery seems to be a crossroads of time, a place where the past refuses to rest quietly and the spirits of those long gone remain ever present, watching, waiting, and sometimes interacting with the living. In sum, Rose Hills Memorial Park is a place where the line between the living and the dead becomes perilously thin. Its winding paths, ancient mausoleums, and silent gardens harbor countless stories of paranormal activity, from shadowy figures and sudden cold spots to whispers, phantom laughter, and spectral lights. For those daring enough to explore its depths after dark, the experience is unforgettable, leaving an indelible impression of a world just beyond our own, where the past continues to walk among the living. Number 3. Pioneer Cemetery, San Diego. Pioneer Cemetery in San Diego, California, is more than just a resting place for the city's earliest settlers. It is a repository of countless spirits, each with a story, a lingering presence, and a shadow that refuses to fade with the passing of time. Established in the mid-19th century, this historic cemetery holds the remains of pioneers, soldiers, and families who helped shape the foundation of San Diego, and their restless energy is said to manifest in ways that both intrigue and terrify visitors. By day, the cemetery is quiet, almost serene, with weathered tombstones, overgrown paths, and the occasional bird call breaking the stillness. Yet even in daylight, some visitors report subtle, unsettling sensations. A sudden drop in temperature, the feeling of being watched, or an inexplicable weight on the chest that vanishes when they turn around. As night falls, the cemetery transforms, shadows stretch unnaturally across the gravestones, and the fog that rolls in from the nearby bay gives the grounds a ghostly, otherworldly atmosphere. The oldest sections of the cemetery are particularly notorious. Here, the tombstones lean precariously, some cracked or worn with age, their inscriptions barely legible. These graves seem to draw the attention of spirits more than the newer plots. Witnesses report shadowy figures walking along the narrow pathways, disappearing behind trees or gravestones as soon as they are noticed. At times, these figures appear almost human, dressed in period clothing, silently pacing or kneeling beside a grave as if tending to a loved one who has long since passed. Visitors have described hearing footsteps along gravel paths where no one else is present, soft whispers calling out names, or the faint echo of mourning carried on the wind. Some say the sounds are indistinct, like murmurs from a bygone era, while others swear they hear voices clearly pleading, weeping, or warning. There are reports of sudden gusts of wind that chill the body to the bone, moving across the cemetery as if guided by invisible hands. Pioneer Cemetery is also known for its strange visual phenomena. Lantern-like glows appear near old graves, flickering without a source, and some observers have reported seeing figures with luminous eyes staring from between trees or leaning over headstones. Children's apparitions are often seen playing along the paths, their laughter echoing eerily before fading into silence. Some of these ghostly children appear in period dress, holding toys or chasing invisible companions, only to vanish when approached. One of the more chilling tales involves the section dedicated to soldiers from early military conflicts. People report shadowy forms marching silently, in perfect alignment, their faces obscured by mist. Some say they can hear the metallic clang of weapons, the shuffle of boots, and the faint commands of officers, as though an eternal parade of the fallen is replaying their final moments night after night. The cemetery has a reputation for objects moving on their own. Visitors have claimed to see flowers repositioned on graves, candles extinguished without wind, and benches that appear slightly shifted from their original positions. Paranormal investigators often note the presence of electromagnetic anomalies, strange recordings on audio equipment, and unexplained cold spots that seem to hover over specific graves, particularly those of individuals who met tragic or untimely deaths. Several areas of Pioneer Cemetery are associated with particularly intense activity. The older, unmarked graves in the northwest corner are said to be hotspots for ghost sightings. People walking alone in this area report being touched by invisible hands, hearing urgent whispers, or sensing presences that follow them silently. Some have even described seeing faint outlines of people appearing and disappearing in the fog, their shapes indistinct but undeniably human. Visitors also frequently report hearing the creak of gates or the soft scrape of shoes along the paths, yet when they investigate, no one is present. Sometimes, the sense of being followed becomes overwhelming, the pressure on the back and shoulders so real that people feel as though they must run to escape. These experiences often leave them shaken, questioning the boundary between the living and the dead. Pioneer Cemetery is not only haunted by shadowy figures and inexplicable sounds but also by residual energy from past events. Historical records indicate that many who lived and died in the area endured hardship, disease, and violent encounters, and some believe that these intense emotional experiences have imprinted themselves on the land. The result is a cemetery that is more than a burial ground. It is a place where the memories, grief, and unfinished business of those who have passed continue to linger. Some paranormal enthusiasts report seeing fleeting images in their cameras or smartphones, such as ghostly figures peering from behind tombstones, orbs of light floating through the mist, and even spectral processions moving silently along the paths. Others recount feeling a sudden pull, as though the spirits are drawing them into certain areas, compelling them to acknowledge the presence of the past. The cemetery has also earned a reputation for being particularly active during anniversaries of death, foggy nights, or special lunar phases. Visitors have documented strange cold spots, fleeting whispers, and even apparitions that seem to pause and observe them for moments before vanishing into thin air. Some claim to have heard piano music drifting from an empty mausoleum or the soft echo of laughter from children playing on the grass where no living child is present. In essence, Pioneer Cemetery in San Diego is a place where the living and the dead intersect, a space where the history of a city collides with the supernatural, creating a haunting tableau of shadow, sound, and unseen presence. Its pathways, mausoleums, and ancient trees serve as conduits for stories long past, a reminder that the dead are never truly gone, merely waiting in silence for those willing or unwise enough to walk among them. Number 4. Angeles Rosedale Cemetery, Los Angeles. Angeles Rosedale Cemetery in Los Angeles is a haunting expanse of history and shadows, a resting place where the past lingers long after the living have moved on. Founded in the late 19th century, this cemetery holds the graves of some of Los Angeles's earliest residents, pioneers, and notable figures. Yet it is not merely a historic site, it is a place whispered about in ghost stories, a location where spectral activity seems woven into the very soil. By day, Angeles Rosedale Cemetery appears serene, with neat rows of tombstones, towering cypress trees, and quiet pathways. The sun glints off marble monuments and engraved names, and one could easily mistake it for any other peaceful resting place. Yet even in the daylight, many visitors report an inexplicable heaviness in the air, a subtle sense of being watched, and the uneasy feeling that something moves just beyond the corner of the eye. Shadows seem to linger unnaturally long, and some claim to see figures that vanish when approached, only to reappear moments later in a different spot. As dusk falls, the cemetery transforms into a scene straight from a Gothic nightmare. The tall iron gates creak with no wind, and the fog rolling in from nearby streets clings to the ground, curling around gravestones and mausoleums like ghostly fingers. The cemetery's older sections, particularly those with Victorian-era tombs, are renowned for intense paranormal phenomena. Visitors walking the winding pathways report sudden drops in temperature, disembodied whispers, and the unmistakable sound of footsteps pacing behind them, only to find no one there. Angeles Rosedale Cemetery has a long history of reported hauntings. Spectral figures dressed in period clothing have been sighted wandering among the graves, some pausing at tombstones as if tending to loved ones who have been dead for decades. Women in white, children with translucent faces, and shadowy men with indistinct features are all part of the lore. Some visitors claim to have seen full-bodied apparitions emerge from mausoleums, standing silently before vanishing into the darkness. One of the more infamous spots is near the mausoleum section, where mourners and caretakers of past centuries are said to linger. Witnesses report hearing conversations in languages long forgotten, faint laughter, and sometimes the distant strains of music, as if a funeral procession is eternally replaying its somber rites. Others have described seeing candles flicker with no flame, tombstones tilting slightly as though nudged by invisible hands, and lantern-like orbs drifting through the fog. Angeles Rosedale's activity is particularly noted at night. People who visit after dark often describe feeling an oppressive presence, the sensation of being followed, and sudden chills that seem to originate from no physical source. Shadowy figures are frequently observed along the pathways, disappearing behind trees or tombstones, only to reappear further down the path. Some report hearing their names whispered softly, or feeling a hand brush against them even when alone. The cemetery is also linked to more specific ghost stories. Several graves are associated with tragic deaths, murders, or sudden illnesses, and these plots seem to be hotspots for paranormal activity. Visitors claim that restless spirits sometimes attempt to communicate through sudden temperature changes, unexplained sounds, or moving objects. Some report seeing fleeting glimpses of faces in reflective surfaces, tombstones, or windows of mausoleums, often staring directly at them before vanishing. Children's apparitions are another recurring theme. Small figures, often in early 20th century clothing, have been reported running along pathways, playing among gravestones, or appearing silently at the foot of adult visitors. Their presence is often accompanied by the faint sound of giggling or soft cries, yet when approached, they disappear without a trace. The cemetery's older trees seem to hold their own energy, their twisted branches casting long shadows that sometimes take on human or animal forms. Some witnesses have seen dark, robed figures moving silently among the trees, while others describe glowing eyes peering from the foliage. Fog tends to gather more heavily in these areas, making the experience even more otherworldly, as if the trees themselves are guardians of the spirits buried below. Even during daylight, certain areas of Angeles Rosedale feel charged with residual energy. People have reported hearing doors creak, stones shift, and faint footsteps echo across empty paths. Paranormal investigators frequently detect electromagnetic anomalies and unexplained cold spots, particularly near older graves and mausoleums. These phenomena suggest that the spirits here are not entirely at rest, bound to the cemetery by their histories and the intense emotions of their final moments. Many visitors recount feeling a weight on their chest, a sensation of being held back or watched, particularly near tombstones associated with tragic events. Some claim to have heard low, mournful wails drifting through the cemetery, while others report brief glimpses of figures in black mourning attire, fading before they can be fully seen. Candles left by visitors sometimes extinguish on their own, and personal items like flowers or notes have been found mysteriously moved from one grave to another. Angeles Rosedale Cemetery also holds a reputation for activity during special dates, such as anniversaries of death, foggy nights, or full moons. On these nights, apparitions are said to appear more frequently, footsteps echo louder, and ghostly figures seem to linger longer before disappearing. Some visitors report seeing entire spectral processions, mimicking old funeral rites, while others hear the faint notes of an organ or piano carried on the wind from an empty mausoleum. The stories from Angeles Rosedale are not just limited to figures and sounds. Some visitors report encountering inexplicable phenomena, cold spots that move as they walk, whispers that seem to respond to questions, or sudden changes in light and shadow that defy logic. Cameras and recording devices often capture anomalies not visible to the naked eye, such as orbs of light, misty shapes, or fleeting figures caught in peripheral motion. In essence, Angeles Rosedale Cemetery is not merely a burial ground. It is a living archive of the past, where the sorrow, grief, and unfinished business of the dead continue to echo across time. Every gravestone, mausoleum, and pathway holds stories that refuse to stay buried, a constant reminder that the spirits of Los Angeles's earliest residents are never truly gone. Their presence lingers in the fog, the shadows, and the quiet corners of the cemetery, inviting or warning those who dare to walk among them. Number 5. Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Glendale. Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale is more than just one of the most famous cemeteries in California. It is a sprawling labyrinth of history, art, and restless spirits. Established in the early 20th century, this cemetery is renowned for its grandeur, with meticulously landscaped gardens, towering statues, and elaborate mausoleums. Yet beneath the serene beauty, countless visitors and paranormal investigators have reported encounters with the supernatural, suggesting that not all who rest here have found peace. From the moment one enters the grand gates, an unsettling stillness pervades the grounds. By day, the cemetery appears pristine, with sunlight glinting off marble monuments and pathways lined with flowering trees. But even in daylight, many visitors report a strange heaviness in the air, an inexplicable feeling of being watched, or the sensation that the shadows between the mausoleums move of their own accord. Some claim to glimpse fleeting figures at the edge of their vision, only to have them vanish when looked at directly. As night falls, Forest Lawn transforms into a shadowy, otherworldly landscape. The towering mausoleums cast long eerie shadows across the pathways, and the carefully manicured gardens take on a more ominous tone. Fog from the nearby hills often rolls in, curling around statues and gravestones as if alive. During these hours, the paranormal activity seems to intensify. Visitors frequently report cold spots that move unpredictably, footsteps echoing from empty corridors, and the soft whisper of voices in languages no longer spoken. The cemetery is rumored to host numerous ghostly residents. Figures dressed in early 20th century attire have been sighted wandering the pathways, some pausing in front of graves as if tending to loved ones, while others disappear into the mist. Some witnesses have reported seeing shadowy silhouettes behind the stained glass of mausoleum windows, fleeting glimpses of mourners who seem oblivious to the living. Many claim to hear disembodied music drifting from the chapels, the soft strains of organ and choral melodies echoing without any visible source. Particular areas of Forest Lawn are known hotspots for paranormal encounters. The Great Mausoleum, with its vast halls and grand art pieces, has been the site of countless reports. Visitors describe seeing figures in period clothing gliding silently along the hallways, or catching reflections of faces in polished marble that vanish upon closer inspection. Some claim to hear whispers of names or faint footsteps following them as they explore, even when alone. The cemetery's older sections, particularly those containing the graves of early Los Angeles pioneers and Hollywood figures, seem to hold a dense residual energy. Many have reported seeing glowing orbs drifting silently among the tombstones, lights that appear and disappear without explanation, or sudden drops in temperature so intense it chills the bones. Phantom children have been seen playing among the statues, their laughter echoing through the grounds before fading into an eerie silence. Forest Lawn is also known for ghostly encounters tied to tragic stories. Some graves are of individuals who met violent or untimely deaths, and these plots are said to attract particularly restless spirits. Visitors report feeling sudden pressure on their chest, hearing faint sobs, or glimpsing shadowy figures kneeling or gesturing at the graves. In some cases, personal items left at the gravesites have been found mysteriously moved or rearranged. On foggy nights, the cemetery takes on an almost cinematic eeriness. Statues seem to shift subtly, fog curls around mausoleums as though guided by unseen hands, and footsteps echo with no discernible source. Some witnesses report encountering full-bodied apparitions that suddenly vanish when approached, leaving behind a lingering sense of dread. Lights flicker inexplicably in the chapels, and some claim to see the faint outlines of figures walking through walls. Paranormal investigators have often recorded anomalous activity at Forest Lawn. EMF spikes, unexplained cold spots, and mysterious orbs are frequently captured on cameras. Some visitors claim to have felt hands brush against them, or to have heard whispers responding to their own words. Shadows sometimes move independently from any object or person, creating an uncanny sensation of being watched and followed. The grounds are particularly active during anniversaries of death, foggy nights, and moments tied to emotional energy, such as memorial ceremonies. Visitors report seeing entire spectral processions of mourners dressed in historical attire, or hearing the soft strains of music and prayers that seem to originate from empty mausoleums. Ghostly lanterns have been seen floating through pathways, and some witnesses claim to see the same apparition multiple times, seemingly keeping watch over particular areas of the cemetery. Children's spirits are a recurring phenomenon at Forest Lawn. Many visitors describe seeing small figures in old-fashioned clothing playing among the graves or standing silently at the edge of a walkway. Their laughter or soft cries often precede a sudden chill, and approaching them often results in their vanishing into thin air. Adults have reported feeling a profound sadness or melancholy when encountering these apparitions, as if the spirits are replaying a moment from their lives before death. The trees and landscaping themselves appear to hold an almost supernatural energy. Their shadows sometimes stretch into shapes resembling human or animal figures, and fog frequently curls unnaturally around particular areas, adding to the disorienting and unnerving experience. Some visitors claim to see figures gliding along the tree line, or glowing eyes peering through the branches. Even during daylight hours, Forest Lawn has its share of unexplained phenomena. Shadows appear where there is no light source, objects shift slightly from their original position, and the sense of being watched remains. Some have reported hearing soft, unexplainable whispers or footsteps along pathways that should otherwise be silent. Visitors often experience emotional reactions, feeling sudden sorrow, fear, or unease as though the past has come alive. In summary, Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale is more than a cemetery. It is a living repository of history, emotion, and spectral activity. The spirits of Hollywood stars, pioneers, and the countless forgotten souls continue to linger, their presence felt in the fog, shadows, and quiet corners of the grounds. Every mausoleum, statue, and grave holds a story, a lingering energy that refuses to be buried, creating an experience that is as chilling as it is fascinating. For those daring enough to wander its grounds, Forest Lawn offers a glimpse into a world where the past and the paranormal coexist, leaving an indelible impression of fear, reverence, and mystery. Number 6. Hollywood Forever Cemetery, Los Angeles. Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles is a place where glamour and mortality intertwine, a resting ground for Hollywood legends, forgotten stars, and ordinary souls alike. Yet beneath the beauty and celebrity, a dark and restless energy lingers, making it one of the most haunted cemeteries in California. Established in 1899, the cemetery sprawls across acres of meticulously landscaped grounds, dotted with elaborate mausoleums, towering obelisks and ornate statues. By day, it is a serene and reflective place, frequented by tourists and fans paying homage to their favorite stars, yet as twilight descends the atmosphere shifts dramatically, revealing a haunting world where spirits roam freely and the past refuses to stay buried. As the sun dips behind the Los Angeles skyline, shadows stretch long and sinister across the graves, and a sudden chill often drifts through the pathways. Visitors have reported the sensation of being watched, the faint brushing of unseen hands, and the almost imperceptible whisper of voices that seem to echo from the very earth itself. Statues of angels and historical figures seem to shift subtly in the corner of one's vision, their eyes following passers-by with a weight that feels almost sentient. Among the most frequently reported phenomena are ghostly figures dressed in early Hollywood attire, gliding silently through the grounds, sometimes pausing in front of mausoleums or leaning over graves as if in mourning. The spirits of actors, directors and performers are said to wander the pathways at night, their presence marked by sudden cold spots, disembodied footsteps, and the faint strains of music from decades past. Some witnesses have reported hearing the faint hum of orchestral scores or the echo of applause from invisible audiences, creating the unnerving sensation that the cemetery itself is reliving its golden age. The crypts and mausoleums of Hollywood forever hold countless stories of tragedy and unrest. Visitors report seeing apparitions at the windows of the larger mausoleums, sometimes in poses suggesting sorrow or longing. Others have felt invisible pressures, sudden chills, or the sense of being followed along deserted paths. Shadows stretch and twist unnaturally, and in some areas, glowing orbs float above the graves, sometimes darting rapidly as if avoiding the living, only to vanish entirely when approached. The cemetery's famous residents, including silent film stars and iconic Hollywood personalities, contribute to its eerie reputation. Some witnesses claim to see the spectral forms of figures in 1920s attire wandering the main avenues, while the laughter and murmurs of long-dead socialites can be heard faintly drifting on the wind. Fog often creeps along the pathways, thickening suddenly without warning, obscuring tombstones and statues, and giving the impression that the living are walking in a dreamscape that teeters on the edge of reality. Particularly active areas include the corridors surrounding the larger mausoleums and the graves of those who died young or violently. Some visitors have described full-bodied apparitions appearing in the mist, staring directly at them before dissolving into shadows. Phantom music and the sound of footsteps echoing through empty chapels are common, and the cemetery's ornate gates sometimes creak open and closed with no discernible cause. Children's spirits are also frequently reported, with witnesses seeing small figures darting among the graves, playing hide-and-seek between the statues, their laughter sometimes echoing faintly before fading into silence. These spirits often appear at dusk, their presence accompanied by sudden drops in temperature and a pervasive feeling of melancholy. It is as if the cemetery itself remembers the lost joy and unfulfilled potential of those who rest here. Nighttime visitors often speak of the cemetery as if it is alive, with its own consciousness guiding or warning the living. Unexplained lights, shadows, and reflections appear in photographs, and some report hearing whispered warnings or seeing figures step from the mist to vanish seconds later. The trees lining the cemetery pathways sway unnaturally, casting shapes that resemble figures moving, and the wind carries sounds that resemble distant conversations, footsteps, or cries for help. The history of Hollywood Forever Cemetery adds to its spectral atmosphere. Many of the early stars buried here met tragic ends, from untimely deaths to the dark underbelly of Hollywood fame. These stories of sorrow and unrest seem to permeate the grounds, creating pockets of intense paranormal activity. Ghost hunters and visitors alike have reported experiencing dizziness, sudden headaches, and the overwhelming feeling of sorrow in certain areas, as though the emotions of the deceased are still present in the air. In addition to personal encounters, paranormal investigations have captured anomalous activity, including orbs, shadow figures, and sudden temperature drops in areas previously warm. Cameras and audio equipment often pick up unexplained sounds such as whispers, footsteps, or faint cries. Witnesses claim to have seen figures appear in old-fashioned clothing, seemingly reliving moments from the height of Hollywood's golden era, walking among the graves as if on a set for a ghostly film. The cemetery's infamous fog adds another layer of horror. It can roll in silently and densely, obscuring paths and making familiar grounds unfamiliar in seconds. Within this fog, shapes move and shift, some appearing humanoid, others impossible to define. Many visitors have felt compelled to leave, sensing presences that seem to watch and follow, feeling that the cemetery itself resists intrusion by the living. Even during daylight, subtle paranormal activity is reported. Some visitors see fleeting shadows and reflective surfaces, hear faint footsteps along deserted pathways, or feel sudden chills that defy explanation. Statues and monuments sometimes seem to alter positions slightly between visits, and there is a pervasive sense that the cemetery remembers those who walk within it. In conclusion, Hollywood Forever Cemetery is a haunting blend of history, fame, tragedy, and restless spirits. It is a place where the living can feel the presence of the past, and where the glamour of Hollywood meets the darkness of the unknown. The spirits of actors, pioneers, children, and everyday citizens continue to walk the grounds, their presence felt in the fog, shadows, and whispers that drift through the night. For those brave enough to visit after dark, Hollywood Forever offers an immersive journey into a world where the line between the living and the dead blurs, and where every corner holds a story waiting to be seen, heard, or felt. Number 7. Oddfellow Cemetery, San Francisco. Oddfellow Cemetery in San Francisco is a historic burial ground that dates back to the mid-19th century, a place layered with the weight of history, tragedy, and mystery. Though officially closed and partially redeveloped, the grounds retain an eerie atmosphere, where the remnants of old tombstones, mausoleums, and overgrown paths create a labyrinthine setting for spirits said to linger long after death. The cemetery was originally established by the Independent Order of Oddfellows, a fraternal organization, as a resting place for their members, but over time, it became a burial site for citizens from all walks of life, including victims of disease, accidents, and violence, creating a tapestry of sorrow and unrest that permeates the soil. Visitors often report an overwhelming sense of being watched as they walk the winding, uneven pathways. Shadows stretch unnaturally across the moss-covered stones, and the occasional sound of footsteps echoes when no one else is present. The air carries a chill even on warm days, a coldness that seems to seep into the bones, paired with the faint scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Many who explore the site at dusk describe the feeling of eyes following them, glimpses of movement at the edge of vision, and an oppressive heaviness as though the spirits themselves are aware of every step taken by the living. Among the most persistent legends is that of the wandering caretaker, a spectral figure often described as an elderly man in a frayed uniform, appearing at the far end of the grounds before vanishing into thin air. Witnesses claim he moves silently, appearing to tend the graves even though decades have passed since the cemetery's active days. Those who follow him too closely report hearing faint whispers, murmured names, or soft cries that grow louder as they approach but vanish the moment they attempt to pinpoint the source. The cemetery contains a section of unmarked graves, where the indigent and forgotten were buried. These graves are the source of some of the most chilling accounts, as many visitors have felt sudden drops in temperature, heard low moaning sounds, or seen flickering lights that dance just above the soil. Some have reported phantom figures rising from these graves, cloaked in mist, walking slowly along the rows of tombstones before disappearing into the shadows. Others speak of hearing chains dragging along the ground, or the faint clanging of metal, as if the deceased are still bound by earthly concerns or unresolved grudges. Ghostly children are another frequent presence in reports from Oddfellow Cemetery. Witnesses have seen small figures playing among the headstones, their laughter eerie and dissonant, echoing long after the figures vanish. Some claim the children look pale and hollow-eyed, dressed in old-fashioned clothing from the 19th century, seemingly unaware of the living around them. Others describe toys appearing and disappearing, swings moving by themselves, and faint sounds of crying or calling for parents that have long been gone. One of the most unsettling aspects of Oddfellow Cemetery is the presence of full-bodied apparitions that appear suddenly in the middle of pathways or at the corners of mausoleums. These figures are often described as transparent or shadow-like, moving with unnatural fluidity, and they seem to be replaying moments from their lives or deaths. Some are seen weeping silently, others appear in aggressive postures before dissolving into the fog. The sense of time and reality seems to warp within the cemetery, making it difficult for visitors to distinguish between imagination, reflection, and genuine paranormal activity. The mausoleums themselves are hotspots of activity. Windows sometimes fog up or frost over for no apparent reason, shadows move inside where there should be none, and doors creak open or shut without any wind. Many visitors have reported seeing silhouettes behind stained glass, watching silently, only to find the interiors empty when approached. On some nights, entire sections of the cemetery seem to come alive with whispers, faint chanting, and the distant sound of bells ringing, though no source can be found. Over the years, urban development has encroached on portions of the original cemetery, but these areas retain their spectral inhabitants. Witnesses who explore redeveloped lots describe feeling cold spots, sudden anxiety, and the sensation of unseen presences following them. Some even report hearing footsteps in the grass or on the pavement where no one should be walking, and phantom figures have been captured on photography or video, appearing as faint shadows or glowing orbs hovering over the ground. The legends of Oddfellow Cemetery are also tied to its history during epidemics and social upheavals. Many of the dead were buried during times of disease outbreaks, and stories of the restless dead, those who did not receive proper rites, persist in local folklore. Paranormal investigators frequently report EMF spikes, unexplained audio phenomena, and cold spots concentrated in certain areas, particularly near older graves, suggesting that the energy of past trauma and sorrow continues to resonate. Visitors have shared countless stories of strange occurrences, sudden headaches, feeling invisible hands brush against them, or hearing whispered warnings to leave. Some report visions of past funerals or people in 19th century attire moving among the graves. Dogs and other animals have also been reported to react nervously in certain areas, barking at nothing or refusing to enter sections of the grounds. The cemetery's fog, when it rolls in from the nearby streets, amplifies the fear and uncertainty, creating silhouettes that seem alive and shifting with intent. Oddfellow Cemetery is a chilling blend of history, tragedy, and unexplained phenomena. The resting place of the forgotten, the famous, and the ordinary alike, it offers a window into the past where the line between life and death feels disturbingly thin. For those daring enough to wander its paths after dark, the cemetery presents an immersive experience of the paranormal, where ghostly figures, spectral children, wandering spirits, and inexplicable phenomena make every shadow and sound a source of fear and fascination. The air is thick with history, sorrow, and unanswered questions, and the living cannot help but feel the presence of the dead as they navigate the winding, mist-covered pathways. Number 8. Evergreen Cemetery, Los Angeles. Evergreen Cemetery in Los Angeles is a sprawling, historic burial ground, dating back to the late 19th century, filled with layers of history, tragedy, and a persistent sense of unease that seems to settle over the grounds like a heavy fog, even on sunlit days. Its winding paths, old mausoleums, and dense clusters of aged tombstones create narrow corridors where shadows twist unnaturally, and the air is heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Visitors have reported a constant feeling of being watched, of movement just beyond their peripheral vision, and an uncanny sense that the cemetery itself is alive with the memories of those long gone. Many of the earliest burials were of families who lost members to disease outbreaks, accidents, or violent deaths, and their unrest seems to linger in the air. Ghostly apparitions are a frequent occurrence, often described as faint figures gliding silently between the graves, dressed in attire from the early 1900s, their features indistinct, yet their presence overwhelmingly tangible. Some witnesses report seeing entire groups of figures, as though reliving moments of mourning or funeral processions, disappearing when approached, leaving only a lingering chill behind. Phantom children are another frequent phenomenon. People walking the grounds have reported hearing laughter echoing among the tombstones, only to find the paths empty. Some describe the children playing with invisible toys, their small figures darting between monuments, giggling in a way that is simultaneously innocent and unnerving. Others recount seeing spectral children sitting on gravestones, rocking back and forth silently, their faces pale and hollow, staring directly at intruders before vanishing into thin air. The mausoleums of Evergreen Cemetery are hotspots for paranormal activity. Windows appear frosted or fogged without reason, shadows are seen moving behind stained glass, and heavy doors creak open or slam shut, even when the wind is still. On some nights, entire mausoleum halls seem to echo with whispers, faint footsteps, or soft chants, as if the dead are attempting to communicate, mourn, or warn the living. Some visitors have reported sudden temperature drops near specific graves, accompanied by a tingling sensation, the hairs on their necks standing on end as if invisible eyes are upon them. Many of the cemetery's hauntings are tied to tragic deaths and unresolved grief. Spectral figures of those who died young or violently are often seen wandering aimlessly, sometimes sitting on graves as if contemplating unfinished business. There are reports of shadowy men in old-fashioned suits standing motionless near family plots, watching silently before melting into the darkness. Others speak of spectral women in mourning attire, moving through fog-laden paths, occasionally sobbing softly, the sound echoing and fading into the night. Strange lights and orbs are commonly reported throughout Evergreen Cemetery. Visitors have described glowing spheres hovering above graves, flickering like tiny lanterns, moving independently or following people along the paths. Some claim these lights are not merely paranormal but sentient, shifting their positions to provoke fear or to guide visitors toward certain areas. People who attempt to photograph these phenomena often capture faint figures, misty forms, or unexplained glows hovering in the background of otherwise normal shots. Evergreen Cemetery is also known for auditory phenomena. Unexplained whispers, soft murmurs, and distant cries echo across the grounds, particularly near the oldest sections. Some visitors have reported hearing footsteps pacing behind them, even when they are alone. Others recount the sound of doors creaking open, chains dragging along pathways, or faint music, as though a spectral funeral march is being conducted for those long deceased. These auditory encounters often trigger intense feelings of dread, panic, or sadness, making it difficult to linger in the cemetery after dark. Animals have also reacted strangely within Evergreen Cemetery. Dogs often growl or bark at unseen entities, refusing to enter certain areas, while birds take flight suddenly, as if spooked by something invisible. Witnesses have reported sudden gusts of wind, inexplicable shadows moving across the paths, or the sensation of being gently touched or pushed by invisible hands. These interactions contribute to the pervasive feeling that the cemetery is alive with unseen activity, and that the spirits within it are aware of the living who wander too close. The cemetery's fog, which rolls in from nearby streets and highways, often enhances the eerie atmosphere. As mist settles among the tombstones, shadows stretch and twist, creating illusions of figures moving just beyond perception. Some visitors have described walking paths that seemed longer than they were, or paths that looped back on themselves, giving a disorienting sense of being trapped. The combination of fog, shadows, and historical energy from the buried has led to countless personal experiences of fear, awe, and fascination. Evergreen Cemetery's reputation for hauntings has persisted over decades, drawing paranormal investigators, historians, and thrill-seekers alike. Many report EMF spikes, cold spots, and the sensation of unseen presences watching or following them. Some claim to have captured disembodied voices on audio recorders, mysterious orbs in photographs, or fleeting glimpses of figures that vanish when approached. Each section of the cemetery seems to harbor different energies, from the solemn and mournful to the restless and angry, creating a patchwork of paranormal activity that has yet to be fully explained. Whether walking through its oldest plots, exploring the mausoleum corridors, or standing silently among the trees, visitors to Evergreen Cemetery frequently report an overwhelming awareness of the past, a tangible connection to those who came before. The combination of tragic history, dense fog, shadows, and unexplained phenomena makes this cemetery one of the most compelling and unsettling locations in Los Angeles for those interested in the paranormal, history, and encounters that defy explanation. Number 9. Cypress Lawn Memorial Park, Calma. Cypress Lawn Memorial Park in Calma, California, is an expansive cemetery steeped in history, renowned not just for its meticulously landscaped grounds and grand mausoleums, but for the lingering sense of unease that has earned it a reputation as one of the most haunted cemeteries in the state. From the moment visitors pass through the wrought iron gates, there is an atmosphere of stillness that is almost oppressive, the kind that makes every footstep echo unnaturally across the carefully maintained paths, and every rustle of wind through the trees feel like a whisper from the past. The cemetery was established in the late 19th century, and many of its early interments were of families who had experienced tragedy, disease, or sudden death. This concentration of grief and unfinished business is believed to have left a spiritual imprint, giving rise to the numerous ghostly sightings reported over the decades. Witnesses often describe seeing figures dressed in the attire of the late 1800s and early 1900s, walking silently among the tombstones, moving in ways that seem almost ritualistic, as if caught in an endless cycle of mourning or remembrance. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at Cypress Lawn is the presence of phantom figures that vanish the moment they are approached. People have described seeing men in formal suits, women in long flowing dresses, and children playing near graves, only to discover that no one is there when they turn their heads. Some visitors report that these apparitions appear more distinct during early morning or twilight hours, when the shadows are long and the cemetery is cloaked in mist, giving the whole scene an ethereal, almost dreamlike quality. The mausoleums at Cypress Lawn are hotspots for supernatural activity. Many are old, built of marble and stone, with intricate carvings that tell stories of families long gone. Shadowy figures are often seen inside or peeking through small windows, and on several occasions, lights have been observed flickering inexplicably. Some visitors recount hearing doors creak open and shut on their own, or the sound of footsteps echoing along marble floors where no one else is present. The sense of being watched in these areas is palpable, creating a tension that lingers long after visitors have left the grounds. Auditory phenomena are a common occurrence. Whispering voices float through the air without any discernible source, often carrying fragmented words or cries of grief. Some hear distant laughter or children's giggles that abruptly stop, leaving only the haunting silence of the cemetery. Others describe the sound of chains dragging along pathways, or muffled cries that seem to come from beneath the earth itself. These sounds are particularly pronounced near older sections of the cemetery, where the first burials took place, suggesting a deep connection to the long-dead spirits resting there. Many visitors also report sudden temperature drops, especially near certain family plots or mausoleums. These cold spots are often accompanied by a feeling of dread or the sensation that an unseen presence is nearby. Some claim to have felt invisible hands brushing against them or experienced an inexplicable pressure in the air, as though spirits were pressing in from all directions. Photographers and paranormal investigators frequently capture orbs of light, misty figures, or shadows and images taken along the cemetery paths, which cannot be explained by conventional lighting or environmental conditions. The landscaping of Cypress Lawn adds to its haunting atmosphere. Ancient oak trees, cypress groves, and carefully tended gardens create corridors of shadow where light seldom penetrates. Fog often drifts through these areas, lending an otherworldly appearance to the grounds, and creating optical illusions where shadows appear to move independently. People walking along the narrow pathways between graves sometimes feel as though they are being followed, hearing footsteps that match their pace, only to turn and find no one behind them. There are also reports of encounters with ghostly animals. Some visitors claim to have seen spectral dogs or cats wandering the cemetery grounds, often disappearing when approached. These apparitions are sometimes linked to specific graves or mausoleums, appearing as guardians or companions to the spirits of the deceased. The presence of these spectral animals adds another layer of mystery and unease, making Cypress Lawn a location where the boundary between the living and the dead feels extraordinarily thin. Legends surrounding Cypress Lawn include tales of grieving souls who remain tethered to the cemetery by tragedy or unfinished business. People have described seeing figures kneeling by graves for hours, only to vanish into thin air when approached. Some report witnessing apparitions reenacting moments from their lives, such as mourning a lost child, walking hand in hand with a loved one, or silently pacing in despair. These visual encounters are often accompanied by a heavy, melancholic energy that lingers in the air, leaving visitors with a profound sense of sadness and awe. The combination of historical significance, tragic deaths, and unexplained phenomena makes Cypress Lawn Memorial Park a compelling and eerie location. Visitors leave the grounds with a heightened awareness of the past and a lingering feeling that the spirits of those who came before continue to watch, whisper, and wander. Whether experienced as fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures, chilling sounds in the night, or inexplicable cold spots, the hauntings of Cypress Lawn are a vivid reminder that some spirits never truly rest. Number 10. Santa Rosa Memorial Park, Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa Memorial Park in Santa Rosa, California, is an expansive and historic cemetery, known for its serene beauty by day and its unnerving presence after dusk. From the moment visitors step through the wrought iron gates, there is an uncanny sense of stillness, a silence so profound that the faintest sound, footsteps on gravel, the rustle of leaves, or a distant owl, feels amplified as if the cemetery itself is listening. The sprawling grounds are dotted with century-old tombstones, mausoleums, and crypts, each carrying the weight of lives long gone, their stories whispered faintly to those who lingered too long. Many of the hauntings at Santa Rosa Memorial Park are tied to its history, as it has been the resting place of numerous tragic figures, including victims of sudden illness, accidents, and violence. Visitors report feeling the heavy presence of sorrow and grief, a lingering energy that seems to seep from the earth and into the bones of anyone walking among the graves. Shadowy figures are often seen drifting between headstones, their outlines fleeting and indistinct, vanishing when approached. These apparitions are sometimes dressed in period clothing, suggesting they are echoes of the past, forever tethered to the cemetery where their lives ended. One of the most common phenomena involves auditory experiences. Whispering voices, soft sobs, and indistinct murmurs float through the air, particularly near older graves or mausoleums. Some hear calls for help, pleas of the lost, or the laughter of children that stops suddenly, leaving only silence. Footsteps echo along the gravel paths where no living soul walks, and doors to mausoleums occasionally creak open or shut by themselves. Paranormal investigators frequently record disembodied sounds, cold spots, and unexplained electromagnetic readings, reinforcing the reputation of Santa Rosa Memorial Park as a location thick with spiritual activity. Visual hauntings are equally chilling. Apparitions of women in flowing dresses, men in hats, and children carrying toys have been reported. They appear for mere moments only to dissolve into thin air, leaving a lingering sense of dread. Some visitors recount seeing misty figures kneeling by graves, holding silent vigils, or pacing in anguish. These spectral sightings often coincide with a profound drop in temperature, as if the spirits themselves bring with them a physical presence that chills the very air. The cemetery's natural environment contributes to its eerie atmosphere. Towering cypress trees cast long shadows that twist in the moonlight, while fog frequently rolls over the grounds, creating ghostly silhouettes and optical illusions. On foggy nights, some have reported seeing glowing orbs drifting along pathways or between graves, seemingly observing the living. These orbs, sometimes moving in patterns or hovering near specific plots, are often interpreted as residual energy or spirits communicating through light. Some of the most unsettling experiences occur near the older sections of the cemetery, where crumbling tombstones and neglected plots carry a sense of forgotten sorrow. Visitors often report a feeling of being watched, hearing footsteps behind them that mirror their own pace, or catching glimpses of shadowy figures in the corner of their eyes. Others describe encounters with ghostly animals, such as spectral dogs wandering between graves or cats with glowing eyes that vanish when approached, adding an additional layer of mystery to the haunting. The cemetery has also gained notoriety for accounts of intense emotional energy. Some visitors have felt sudden bouts of despair or overwhelming sadness that lift as mysteriously as they arrived. Others experience unexplained pressure in the air, the sensation of invisible hands brushing against them, or the feeling of being guided or followed by unseen presences. These experiences have led some to believe that the spirits at Santa Rosa Memorial Park are not merely echoes of the past but active entities, interacting with those who wander the grounds at night. Even photographers and paranormal enthusiasts have captured strange phenomena, including shadowy figures, unexplained mists, and faint glowing lights. Many claim that images taken near certain plots reveal figures that were not visible to the naked eye, while others report orbs that seem to move intentionally, suggesting intelligence behind their manifestation. Nighttime visitors often leave with a lasting impression of a place where the veil between the living and the dead is unusually thin. Santa Rosa Memorial Park stands as a chilling reminder of the persistent presence of the past. Its historic graves, silent pathways, and the lingering energy of those who never truly departed make it one of California's most haunted cemeteries. Every shadow, whisper, or sudden chill reinforces the notion that the spirits here are still very much aware, still very much present, and still very much unsettled. The cemetery is not only a resting place for the departed but also a stage where the living occasionally glimpse the persistent echoes of death, loss, and unresolved stories. Number 11. Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, Sacramento. Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, one of the oldest burial grounds in California, is a sprawling labyrinth of tombstones, mausoleums, and crypts, with graves dating back to the mid-19th century. Walking through its iron gates, there is an immediate sense of entering a world suspended in time, where the living and the dead coexist in uneasy proximity. The cemetery's aged oaks and cypress trees stretch skyward, their twisted branches casting long shadows over weathered headstones, creating a sense that the grounds themselves are alive, whispering stories of the past to anyone who dares to listen. The hauntings here are tied closely to the city's history. Sacramento Historic City Cemetery has been the final resting place for pioneers, gold rush settlers, military veterans, and victims of tragic deaths, including epidemics, accidents, and crimes. Many visitors and paranormal investigators report sensing an oppressive weight of sorrow and unrest as they move deeper into the older sections of the grounds. Ghostly figures, often dressed in the attire of the 1800s, are said to drift between graves, appearing briefly in the fog before vanishing, leaving an eerie silence that feels almost suffocating. Auditory phenomena are common and unnerving. Whispering voices are frequently reported along the cemetery paths, sometimes distinct, other times as if coming from the earth itself. Footsteps echo where no one walks, and disembodied cries, laughter, or faint music sometimes accompany visitors, intensifying the feeling that they are not alone. Security cameras and paranormal equipment often record sudden temperature drops, unexplained noises, and faint, shadow-like movements that defy any logical explanation. Some of the most chilling accounts involve visual apparitions. Visitors have reported seeing spectral women in long dresses, men in top hats, and children wandering between gravestones, often disappearing when approached. Others claim to see shadowy figures that lurk behind trees or appear near crypts, watching silently, their presence felt as a cold, heavy pressure in the air. Certain graves are notorious for repeated paranormal activity, drawing ghost hunters who document strange lights, orbs, and fleeting figures in photographs and video footage. The cemetery's atmosphere is amplified at night. Fog frequently rolls in, concealing paths and making familiar grounds feel alien and threatening. Moonlight casts distorted shadows that seem to move independently, creating the illusion of figures pacing among the tombstones. Many report seeing glowing orbs floating near older graves, moving in patterns that suggest consciousness, almost as if the spirits are observing or even guiding those who wander the grounds. The cemetery is also tied to intense emotional energy. Some visitors experience sudden sadness, unease, or fear that rises inexplicably and dissipates just as mysteriously. Others feel a presence brushing against them, as if unseen hands are following or guiding their steps. Paranormal investigators have recorded strange electromagnetic anomalies and fleeting images on cameras, reinforcing the belief that Sacramento Historic City Cemetery is a hotspot for spiritual activity. Adding to its mystique, the cemetery contains unique historical elements, including old crypts, mausoleums with intricate carvings, and monuments that have endured decades of weathering and neglect. Many of these structures are said to amplify the paranormal energy, particularly at night, when shadows and moonlight interplay across the decaying stone surfaces, creating moving silhouettes and unsettling reflections that the mind struggles to rationalize. Visitors also recount ghostly animals wandering the grounds, such as spectral dogs pacing silently along paths or cats with glowing eyes appearing and disappearing without warning. These sightings contribute to the overwhelming sensation that this cemetery is a liminal space, where time, life, and death blur and the spirits of the past maintain a tenuous connection to the present. Sacramento Historic City Cemetery is a chilling testament to California's history, serving as both a resting place for the dead and a canvas for paranormal phenomena. Each shadow, whisper, or sudden chill reinforces the feeling that the spirits here are not merely echoes of the past but active presences, aware and observant of those who enter their domain. It is a place where the living can catch glimpses of lives long gone, where unresolved tragedies linger, and where every step among the graves can bring one closer to the unknown. Number 12. Lone Mountain Cemetery, San Francisco. Lone Mountain Cemetery, perched atop the heights of San Francisco, is a sprawling and eerie burial ground that seems suspended between the living city below and the fog-laden sky above. Established in the late 19th century, this cemetery was originally divided into multiple sections, each catering to different religious and ethnic communities, and over time became a magnet for spectral stories, urban legends, and chilling encounters. Walking through its gates, visitors immediately sense a weighty silence, broken only by the distant rustle of wind through aged cypress and eucalyptus trees, as though the spirits themselves are whispering secrets of the past. The cemetery is steeped in history, and its haunted reputation grows with every tale of ghostly sightings and unexplained phenomena. Spectral figures, often appearing in period attire, have been reported wandering among the ornate tombstones and mausoleums, some lingering near the resting places of notable San Francisco figures. Ghostly women in flowing dresses glide past crypts, their faces pale and indistinct, while shadowy men with top hats and canes fade into the fog, leaving a trail of icy air in their wake. Children's laughter has been heard echoing across empty sections, only to vanish suddenly, leaving the living with an unsettling emptiness and the eerie sensation of being watched. Visitors and paranormal investigators have recorded disembodied footsteps along gravel paths where no one walks, the clinking of metal gates opening and closing, and faint whispers drifting through the fog. Some report sudden drops in temperature, a chilling reminder that the veil between worlds here is thin. Many areas are noted for repeated paranormal activity, particularly near older, neglected crypts, where shadows seem to move with intention, almost as if the spirits are guiding or testing intruders. The cemetery's design, with winding paths and densely packed gravestones, enhances the feeling of being lost in time, where the living are enveloped by the histories and energies of the dead. The haunting is not limited to apparitions. Strange lights have been seen hovering near certain graves, glowing softly before darting away, often captured in photographs or on night vision video. Witnesses describe these orbs as intelligent, moving with purpose and often disappearing when approached. Fog tends to gather in low areas between tombstones, sometimes forming shapes that resemble figures or faces, further blurring the line between reality and the supernatural. Those who venture deep into Lone Mountain Cemetery at night often speak of an oppressive sense of dread, as if unseen eyes are tracking their every move. Adding to the eeriness are the tales of tragic deaths and unresolved stories buried within the cemetery. Many graves belong to individuals who died young, victims of epidemics or accidents, and their spirits are said to linger, restless and seeking acknowledgement. Visitors have reported seeing shadowy figures near these graves, sometimes reaching out or pointing toward areas of historical significance, as if urging the living to remember the past or warning them away. Ghostly animals have also been observed. Spectral dogs patrol pathways, occasionally appearing in the periphery of vision before vanishing, their eyes glowing faintly in the mist. The cemetery structures contribute to the haunting ambience. Gothic mausoleums, intricately carved headstones, and crypts with weathered inscriptions create distorted shadows under the moonlight. Fog weaving through these monuments produces shapes that appear alive, making even the familiar paths seem alien and dangerous. Paranormal investigators report that the acoustics of the cemetery amplify whispers, footsteps, and other sounds, creating the impression that spirits are surrounding those who explore the grounds. Many visitors experience sudden sensations of being touched, pushed, or followed, often accompanied by feelings of deep sadness, fear, or even anger that seem to emanate from the earth itself. At night, Lone Mountain Cemetery transforms into a chilling landscape of fog, shadows, and unseen presences. The interplay of moonlight, mist, and towering trees creates illusions that unsettle the mind, while the restless energy of the dead seems to permeate every corner. People have reported seeing entire processions of spectral figures moving silently along the paths, or glimpsing faces in the windows of mausoleums that vanish when approached. The cemetery's aura is one of intense, lingering grief, history, and supernatural activity, where each step can reveal something previously unseen and each sound might be more than just the wind. The stories of Lone Mountain Cemetery are countless and enduring. Accounts of ghostly apparitions, sudden chills, strange lights, and inexplicable sounds have persisted for generations, making it one of San Francisco's most famous and feared haunted locations. Its combination of historical significance, architectural eeriness, and paranormal activity ensures that anyone who steps foot within its gates leaves with the feeling that they have crossed into another realm, a place where the dead are never truly gone and the living are only visitors. Number 14. Calvary Cemetery, Los Angeles. Calvary Cemetery, located in the heart of Los Angeles, stands as one of the city's oldest and most storied Catholic burial grounds, steeped in history, mystery, and chilling tales of the supernatural. Established in the late 19th century, this vast cemetery spans acres of carefully arranged plots, ancient oak trees, and weathered mausoleums, giving it an air of solemn grandeur that masks the restless energies that dwell within. The moment one steps through its wrought iron gates, a heavy stillness envelopes the visitor, as if the very air carries the memories and grief of generations long past. The cemetery is a labyrinth of winding paths, narrow alleys between headstones and shadowed corners where sunlight barely reaches. It is in these secluded areas that the most disturbing phenomena are reported. Visitors have described sudden chills that descend without warning, accompanied by a feeling of invisible eyes tracking every movement. The wind here often carries whispers, unintelligible but persistent, seeming to emanate from the graves themselves. Some say these whispers are the prayers, complaints, or laments of the dead, trapped between the mortal world and the afterlife, unwilling or unable to move on. One of the most frequently reported hauntings involves shadowy figures that appear along the cemetery's main avenues and around mausoleums. These figures are often described as dark silhouettes, sometimes with vague human shapes, other times more amorphous, moving against the patterns of the wind or casting shadows that shouldn't exist. At night, some visitors report seeing full apparitions, priests, mourners, or entire funeral processions, frozen in spectral motion, replaying scenes of grief and loss as if the cemetery itself is a stage where the dead perform their eternal rituals. Children are also said to appear, their laughter echoing eerily across the plots, only to vanish when approached. Mausoleums add an additional layer of unease. Many of these structures are adorned with carved angels, crosses, and ornate statues whose eyes seem to follow passers-by. Visitors have reported lights flickering within the mausoleum windows even when the structures are sealed, the faint sounds of footsteps on marble floors, and doors that open or close on their own. The effect is magnified at twilight, when long shadows stretch across the cemetery, giving the impression of a living world hidden among the tombstones, a world that is invisible but palpably present. Calvary Cemetery is also famous for sudden, unexplained temperature drops. Areas of the grounds can go from normal warmth to a chilling cold in an instant, often in places associated with tragic deaths, early burials, or high concentrations of unrest souls. Some visitors describe the sensation of a ghostly hand brushing their arm, a soft tug on clothing, or a heavy pressure against their chest that makes it hard to breathe. Paranormal investigators have noted irregular electromagnetic readings, faint orbs captured in photographs, and recordings of whispers that seem to respond to questions posed by the living. There are also numerous legends that have been passed down about the cemetery. One tells of a grieving woman who wanders the grounds, endlessly searching for a child lost to illness, her form only visible during foggy mornings. Another recounts the ghost of a priest who appears at the edge of the cemetery, guiding lost visitors back to the gates, his face obscured in shadow. Others speak of spectral soldiers who march silently along the paths, their presence accompanied by faint clanging and muffled orders as if reliving long-past conflicts. Even the trees seem to participate in the haunting. Their branches creak in ways that resemble sighs or whispers, and at night, some claim the wind itself carries a chorus of voices calling out names, pleading for attention, or whispering warnings to the living. Visitors at night often describe a sense of being followed, of hearing footsteps that do not match their own pace, or the sudden appearance of figures at the periphery of vision that vanish when looked at directly. Ghostly lights, sometimes resembling lanterns or candles, flicker between tombstones, moving in ways inconsistent with wind or other natural forces. These lights are often associated with apparitions, appearing to hover around the graves of those who met untimely deaths or were buried in secrecy. Calvary Cemetery is not just a place of haunting but also a repository of history. Many of its occupants are immigrants, early pioneers, clergy, and everyday citizens whose lives were marked by hardship, sacrifice, and loss. The cemetery's paranormal activity is said to reflect this collective energy, a melding of sorrow, devotion, and unresolved grief. Some paranormal experts suggest that the cemetery serves as a thin veil between the living and the dead, where the sheer concentration of human emotion has created a persistent spiritual echo that manifests in visible, audible, and tactile phenomena. In addition to visual and auditory hauntings, many visitors report feeling a deep sense of unease, dread, or melancholy when walking the paths, particularly near older graves or mausoleums with tragic histories. Some describe sudden disorientation, losing their sense of direction, or feeling as though time itself has slowed or shifted. These experiences are so consistent that Calvary Cemetery has become a site of pilgrimage not only for the faithful but also for those intrigued by the paranormal, daring to walk its grounds after dark in search of encounters with the beyond. From ghostly children and shadowy figures to spectral funeral processions and unexplained lights, Calvary Cemetery in Los Angeles embodies the eerie, chilling, and unexplainable aspects of California's haunted landscapes. The combination of history, architecture, and concentrated spiritual energy ensures that any visit is more than a simple stroll among the dead. It becomes an immersive experience in a world where the boundary between life and death is thin, permeable, and constantly tested. Number 15. Mission San Miguel Cemetery, San Miguel. Mission San Miguel Cemetery, nestled in the quiet town of San Miguel, California, is a place where history and the supernatural intertwine, leaving an eerie and unforgettable impression on anyone who dares to walk its grounds. Established alongside the Mission San Miguel Arcangel in the late 18th century, the cemetery has served as the final resting place for generations of townspeople, missionaries, soldiers, and early settlers. Over time, the layers of history, sorrow, and devotion have created a deeply charged spiritual atmosphere that is said to give rise to a multitude of paranormal phenomena, making it one of the most haunted cemeteries in California. Upon entering the cemetery, visitors are greeted by rows of weathered headstones and ornate crypts, many covered in ivy or moss, standing as silent witnesses to centuries of lives and deaths. The air is heavy, almost tangible, carrying whispers of prayers, sighs, and sometimes faint cries that seem to come from nowhere. Even during the daytime, a sense of watchfulness pervades. The shadows of trees twist unnaturally across the ground, and the wind moves in ways that seem to respond to unseen presences. The most commonly reported hauntings involve shadowy figures moving among the graves. These apparitions are not always fully formed, sometimes appearing as dark silhouettes that vanish when approached, other times showing more human features, cloaked in garments reminiscent of the 1800s. Some witnesses have described spectral priests walking slowly along the cemetery paths, their faces pale and obscured, murmuring prayers that echo and fade in the still air. Visitors often feel eyes following them from the corners of the grounds, an almost oppressive sensation of being observed by spirits who never left. Mission San Miguel Cemetery is also known for auditory hauntings. Travelers and paranormal investigators have recorded footsteps echoing along empty lanes, distant chants, and low murmurs that cannot be attributed to wildlife or the wind. At night, these sounds intensify. The quiet of the town is broken by whispers that seem to call out names, mournful cries, and sometimes the faint tolling of bells, even though the church tower remains silent. Some report hearing the faint singing of hymns or children laughing in the distance, only to find no one present when they investigate. Many of the graves in the cemetery have tragic histories, which may contribute to the intensity of the hauntings. Some belong to children who died young, victims of disease, or settlers who perished during harsh winters or epidemics. Witnesses have reported seeing small figures near these graves, their features vague but distinctly childlike, darting between tombstones before vanishing completely. Others recount glimpses of mourners dressed in old-fashioned garments, eternally replaying the rituals of grief in silent, ghostly processions that appear and disappear like mist. The architecture of the cemetery adds to its unsettling atmosphere. Statues of angels with solemn expressions, crosses that lean with age, and mausoleums with iron gates all seem to watch visitors, and some have been associated with unexplained activity. Doors that should be locked are sometimes found ajar, shadows flicker across walls where no light source exists, and faint lights appear inside mausoleums where no electricity or candles are present. The interplay of light and shadow at dusk makes the entire cemetery appear alive with movement, even when the air is still. Temperature fluctuations are another common occurrence. Sudden drops in temperature can send shivers down the spine of those walking the grounds, often localized around specific graves or mausoleums. Some have felt phantom touches, gentle brushes on the shoulder or arm, or a sense of pressure against their chest, leaving them breathless for a moment before the feeling vanishes. Paranormal investigators have noted unusual electromagnetic readings and faint, unexplained orbs appearing in photographs, suggesting the presence of a strong spiritual energy that interacts with the physical world in strange ways. One of the most chilling legends associated with Mission San Miguel Cemetery involves a ghostly priest who wanders the grounds at night. Witnesses say he appears in a long, dark robe, moving slowly between graves, holding an invisible book or cross, and sometimes guiding lost visitors back toward the cemetery gates. Some believe this spirit is a protector, while others feel an ominous presence, as though the priest is judging or following the living. Another story tells of a weeping woman seen at the edge of the cemetery during foggy nights, her form translucent and dripping with an ethereal mist, searching endlessly for a loved one lost long ago. The cemetery's location next to the historic mission also amplifies its haunted reputation. The mission itself has centuries of layered history, including conflicts between settlers and native populations, deaths from illness and countless funerals and burials. This accumulation of sorrow, devotion, and unresolved energy is thought to have infused the cemetery, making it a hotspot for paranormal activity. Some visitors claim they have felt the presence of entities not directly tied to the known graves, sensing presences that are old, restless, and bound to the area rather than any individual tomb. Visitors often report disorientation, losing their sense of direction among the winding paths, especially at night. Some describe feeling as if the cemetery expands or shifts around them, the same path leading to different sections than expected. Ghostly lights, sometimes appearing as lanterns or orbs, float between graves or along pathways, flickering or pulsing in ways inconsistent with natural sources. These lights are often accompanied by a profound sense of being watched or followed, reinforcing the feeling that the living are intruding on a domain dominated by the dead. Mission San Miguel Cemetery is not only a site of haunting but also a reflection of history. The stories of those buried here, priests, settlers, children, and townspeople blend with legend and folklore, creating a deeply textured narrative that can be felt by those who visit. The ghosts, apparitions, and strange phenomena reported are part of a continuum of sorrow, devotion, and mystery, making the cemetery both a historical treasure and a paranormal enigma. Walking through Mission San Miguel Cemetery is more than a simple visit. It is an immersion into a world where time, life, and death converge. The blend of visual apparitions, unexplained sounds, temperature shifts, and the emotional weight of centuries of history ensures that each visit leaves a lasting impression. Shadows move where they should not, whispers speak where no one is, and the spirits of the past remain ever present, blurring the boundary between the living and the dead. As the night deepens and the last light fades behind the hills, one cannot help but feel the weight of centuries pressing down in California's haunted cemeteries, each grave holding a story, each shadow concealing secrets that defy the living world. From the solemn rows of Mountain View Cemetery in Oakland, to the eerie mausoleums of Rose Hills Memorial Park in Whittier, the atmosphere is thick with whispers, unseen movements, and the faint echo of footsteps that never belonged to the living. Walking among these ancient tombstones, visitors may feel chills that run through the body without warning, the sudden sense that something unseen is observing every move, the cold spots that appear in the open air as though the very soul of the place reaches out, or the soft sighs that seem to drift through the trees in the stillness, carrying the grief of centuries of lives ended too soon. In Angeles Rosedale Cemetery and Forest Lawn Memorial Park, the ornate sculptures and statues of angels and mourners seem almost alive, their eyes watching, their gestures frozen yet somehow expressive, capturing the sorrow, the love, and sometimes the vengeance of spirits who have refused to move on. Every cemetery has its own personality, from the Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, where film stars and musicians of the past linger in spectral form, to Oddfellow Cemetery in San Francisco, where the spirits of fraternal members guard the grounds, to Evergreen Cemetery with its overgrown paths, curling iron fences, and tombstones that appear to whisper secrets when the wind blows. Every step taken is a brush with history, memory, and something beyond understanding. In these places, stories of ghostly figures, weeping women, mourning children, and phantom visitors are not mere tales but repeated encounters, shared by countless witnesses over decades, each account adding another layer to the dense atmosphere of unease. As you walk the pathways of Cypress Lawn Memorial Park in Calma, or pause beneath the towering trees of Santa Rosa Memorial Park, it becomes apparent that these cemeteries are not merely resting places but portals, places where the boundary between life and death grows thin, where a single step can put you face to face with the spectral residue of emotion, tragedy, and memory. The Sacramento Historic City Cemetery hums with the echoes of California pioneers, their footsteps still audible to those who walk carefully at dusk, while Lone Mountain Cemetery in San Francisco seems almost to shift, paths twisting in ways that make the familiar suddenly unfamiliar, encouraging caution, curiosity, and respect. Among the crypts of Holy Cross Cemetery in Colma and the shadowed graves of Calvary Cemetery in Los Angeles, one can sense the persistence of the departed, the energy that does not dissipate, the feeling that someone or something is eternally present, silently observing, occasionally reaching out, leaving evidence of its existence in sudden drops in temperature, disembodied voices, flickering lights, and the sensation of unseen hands brushing against the skin. Mission San Miguel Cemetery in San Miguel stands as a final testament, a place where the living feel the weight of the past, the cumulative sorrow of lives lived and lost, and the unresolved echoes that haunt the grounds, weaving a continuous tapestry of fear, fascination, and historical resonance. Visiting these cemeteries requires respect and caution, a willingness to tread lightly while acknowledging that the spirits may be near, watching, listening, sometimes interacting, their presence undeniable, their intentions unknowable, and their history embedded in the very stones and soil of the grounds. It is not a place for the casual tourist seeking thrill alone, but for the thoughtful observer, the historian, the paranormal enthusiast who wishes to experience the convergence of life, death, memory, and myth. Take note of the sounds, the smells, the sudden chill that runs across the spine, the faint lights that flicker where no source exists, the shadows that move independently of natural motion, and the unexplainable feeling that the cemetery is alive in a way that transcends the ordinary, a living memory of grief, devotion, and spectral existence that persists across decades and centuries. Whether it is the cries of lost children, the footsteps of pioneers, the soft weeping of nuns and mourners, or the ghostly silhouettes of forgotten souls, each cemetery tells a story, invites reflection, and reminds us of the delicate balance between the living and the dead. If you are drawn to visit, proceed with caution, humility, and awareness, documenting carefully, walking quietly, and treating the space with reverence, as the spirits here are not merely stories, they are echoes of lives that once were bound to the locations they loved, feared, or were taken from lingering for eternity in California's most haunted cemeteries. And as you leave, remember that even after departing the gates, the memory of these haunted grounds may follow, whispers carried on the wind, shadows flickering in your peripheral vision, and a lingering sense that in the quiet of the night, the dead are never truly gone, and their presence remains an eternal part of the Californian landscape.